Tonight's story isn't like the usual urban legends or made-up tales. It's a story that creeps up on you, just like the Whistler himself. Some claim it's a cursed entity from a forgotten town wiped off the map. Others believe it's a manifestation of guilt or regret, preying on those who hear its melody. 2. The Origin, a dark web discovery. Introduce Mark, a skeptical college student majoring in psychology. He's doing research on the psychology of fear for a class project. He stumbles upon a dark web forum called Echoes of the Unknown, dedicated to unexplainable phenomena. A pinned post titled "The Whistler, Myth or Curse" catches his attention. Users share eerie accounts of hearing the whistling, a teenager who vanished from her bedroom, a camper who found strange footprints around his tent, and someone who saw shadows that weren't supposed to be there. One post haunts Mark. Mark dismisses the thread as paranoia, but bookmarks it for his project. 3. Mark's first encounter, the whistling begins. A week later, Mark stays late at the library to study. Walking home, he hears faint whistling in the distance. It's a haunting melody, oddly familiar, but unsettling. He dismisses it as someone on the street, but notices it follows him, growing louder as he nears his apartment. Once inside, the sound fades. Mark shakes it off, thinking it's in his head. That night, he has a vivid nightmare of standing in a dark field. In the distance, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes whistles the same tune. He wakes up in a cold sweat. 4. The Investigation, a deeper dive. The next day, Mark revisits the forum. Now intrigued, he starts messaging some of the users who shared their encounters. A user named Silent Echo replies, "If you've heard the whistle, it's already too late. It doesn't stop until you see it." Silent Echo shares their own chilling experience. They ignored the whistling for weeks until one night it came from inside their house. They describe seeing a distorted figure with a jagged smile standing at the foot of their bed. Mark begins piecing together patterns. The whistle always starts faint, grows louder, and eventually invades personal spaces. Victims describe the figure as both physical and spectral, like it exists in 2 dimensions at once. Mark becomes paranoid, constantly checking his surroundings and recording audio at night to catch the whistle. 5. The Whistler escalates. Paranoia and fear. The whistling returns, louder and closer, waking Mark in the middle of the night. He peers outside, but sees nothing. The sound moves around his apartment, as if circling him. Mark's paranoia grows. He installs cameras and leaves lights on, but the recordings capture nothing, just the sound of whistling. One night, the whistling stops suddenly. Mark feels relieved, only to find a single muddy footprint on his living room floor. Six, a friend's warning, a desperate plea. Mark confides in his best friend, Sam, who brushes it off as stress-induced paranoia. Days later, Sam calls Mark in a panic, saying he's been hearing the whistling after visiting Mark's apartment. "Oh, Sam, it's here. I can't escape it. Don't you hear it too?" Mark rushes to Sam's place, but when he arrives, the apartment is eerily silent. He finds Sam's phone on the floor, the screen shattered. In the corner of the room, there's a crude drawing of a shadowy figure with a jagged smile. 7. The Whistler Revealed, a deadly encounter. That night, Mark hears the whistling louder than ever before. It seems to echo from everywhere at once. He locks himself in his room, but the melody grows deafening. Suddenly, it stops. Mark senses a presence behind him. Slowly turning, he sees the Whistler for the first time. A grotesque figure with hollow eyes, an elongated body, and a grin that stretches unnaturally wide. The Whistler tilts its head and speaks in a distorted, otherworldly voice. Mark blacks out and wakes up in his room, the door locked. There's no sign of the Whistler, but his phone shows a new video recorded during the night. The video. Mark is asleep in bed, and the camera slowly pans to the corner, where the Whistler stands, watching. 8. The final twist, a haunting cliffhanger. Mark tries to delete the video, but it reappears on his phone moments later, looping endlessly. He receives a text from Sam's number. "It's your turn now." The screen fades to black as the faint sound of whistling grows louder, leaving the audience in chilling silence.